All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're the Informed Prostate Cancer Support Group. We are not computer experts. And I can try to advance my screen. Oh, wow. This is... All right. So pandemic might still be on its last legs, or maybe we're seeing another little surge here. Don't know, but either way, we still have not yet returned to the auditorium, of course. And until then, we will continue with the monthly video stream on the third Saturday of each month. Our principals are Bill Lewis, our president, who also does the wonderful newsletter summaries. Jean Van Vliet, our director and treasurer. Both Bill and Jean do a fantastic job running the hotline as well for people to call in and get some questions answered. Thank you guys for doing that. Steve Pendergast is our newsletter editor and our secretary. Bill Manning is our director and videographer. Myself, Aaron Lamb, director and facilitator of the meetings, and John Tassi, our webmaster. And of course, there's you, over 900 members, I gotta say, across the US, because today we have somebody joining us from Florida, and I know there's quite a few others from outside of California. And everyone can be a volunteer. You can be too. I know that we got a long meeting today, so I'm going to skip a couple of the slides I've sometimes covered. But I want to still let everybody know, especially the new people joining us today for the first time, our support to you comes in the form of the website, www.ipcsg.org. There you can find a wealth of information, links to our our past meetings, our monthly newsletter, which is fantastic, provides a lot of information, write-ups of the previous month's meeting, as well as the latest and greatest medical news. Really a wealth of information that you can explore there. We also have, of course, the monthly video streams on the third Saturdays. And perhaps the most important thing that we offer are our hotline numbers. You can contact Jean and Bill at the phone numbers that you see there. Those numbers are also available on our website, and they can help you they can help answer some of your questions, put you in contact with other members to help get some information, answering other questions that other members with similar experiences might be able to help answer. And additionally, we've recently added Sharon and her numbers there as well. And specifically, she wants to help out the women, family, and caregivers, because as much as dealing with prostate cancer is difficult on the patient, it's also very difficult for the caregivers and family around us. So thank you, Sharon, for offering that support. And we do need volunteers. We have we have 3 volunteers today, Pat, Mike, and Bob, that are going to be sharing their stories. Thank you so much for volunteering. We love doing these roundtables. They're extremely useful to our members. And so I encourage you to contact Bill or Jean if you'd be willing to share your experience. We also need people to help recruit and schedule speakers, doctors and other medical professionals. So if you have a suggestion, please submit it through the website, submit it through, let Jean or Bill know as well. Yes, you can contact us through the website. There's a way to send a message, or through the hotline numbers. That's Jean's hotline number that you see there. Now, pardon me just for a second. I'm hoping that this is not the Bill and thank you for the person that just volunteered to help take calls. We'll get in contact with you. I'll get Bill in contact with you. So thank you for sending me that text.
That was me. LOL.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bob.
I'll unmute.
All right. So our main support group purpose is that we share patient-focused experience on becoming your own case manager through informing, networking, and caring. We are a group of experienced participants, but we are not medical professionals, and any sharing by any one of our group may not be a substitute for your medical counsel. And we do need your support. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so that means donations are tax deductible. There's no medical or religious affiliations. During the coronavirus pandemic, while we're video streaming our meetings, our costs remain very much the same. We do the advertising, hopefully as you've heard in the recent meetings, the advertising on the back of this, the grocery store receipts, the trifold pamphlets that we give out, the bumper stickers, other advertising in the newspaper, the website. We do have a number of expenses. So we do very much appreciate donations. You can send a donation online via PayPal on our website, or by sending a check to the address you see there. And that address is also available on the website. For our upcoming meetings, we have Dr. Robert Hoffman. He's a professor emeritus in UCSD's Department of Surgery. He's going to give us a presentation next month on how to starve cancer naturally. And coming up the following month, we have Dr. Mike Shea, who we've had before. He's a professor of urology and director of UCSD Men's Health. And both of those are certainly going to be wonderful presentations as well. But for today, we have our member roundtable, and we have Patrick Miller, Mike Dibitetto, and BobStacy, who will be sharing their stories today. Now, do we have Patrick Miller's audio up and running yet?
Well, can you hear me? It's Bill Lewis.
I can hear you, Bill.
He's continuing to have trouble, and my question is, can he telephone you and put him on speakerphone and send it out through your system?
Yeah, we can certainly give that a try. Was he not able to connect to Zoom on his phone directly?
Right. He says his phone is old and dying and refuses to do Zoom, but he just joined the meeting by one means or another. And I'm going to ask Pat, would you call Aaron and let's see if we can make it work that way.
Okay.
We just love technical problems.
All right. Then tell you what, I'm going to, let's just see if he's ready to go here, if he calls me. Unfortunately, I just lost his number too. Let's see.
I could give it to you.
No, I think I got it here.
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right.
Who's that saying they can hear me? Hear him? What?
This is Eduardo. I'm in the audience and I can hear you.
Yeah. We're having a problem, Eduardo, on Pat's end. I did just try to call Pat and it went to voicemail. So tell you what, I'm going to jump ahead to Mike. Mike, are you ready? Do you want to go ahead and tell us your story?
I'm absolutely fine.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and we'll come back to Pat a little bit later.
All righty. Okay. Let me see where to start here. Just give me a second. All right. I am 71 years old. I live in Palm Coast, Florida. I am actually retired, but I still have 3 restaurants who my children are running. I love to play golf, but I haven't played in a year because I also got a bad back. I've had 3 surgeries on that. And the last 5 years have been nothing but health issues for me. And I got diagnosed back in September 2019 and with metastatic prostate cancer. Do you have my first, do you see my diagnosis and first step slide? You got it. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, good. As you can see, I was diagnosed with a PSA of 43, and what was strange about that was I've been having my PSA checked for years, and prior to September 2019, the year prior to that, I winded up having to go for jaw surgery. And so I was down and out for just about a year. My jaw was not wired shut, but kept closed. So I couldn't do anything. I couldn't eat. It was a real pain. And when that was finally recovered, when I finally recovered from that, I told my doctor, my regular doctor, you know, we haven't done any blood tests in over a year because of my other situation. And I go for my PSA test, and he calls me back the next day. He says, you got to go for another one. Something's wrong. And needless to say, my PSA went from what it normally would be between 1 and 2, went to 18, then 21, then 43. So anyway, with that, I wind up going to my urologist. He did my where he did the excuse me, my brain isn't working the way it used to. I have a very hard time recalling things, but he did
biopsy.
Yeah, he did the biopsies. Thanks, buddy. It's right in front of me. It goes to show you where I'm at. And it says right there, 11 positive, mostly Gleason 7s, but one was a 9. And you see the rest of that. With that, I went to a oncologist, and they started me on, my urologist put me on the Eligard, and my oncologist put me on Zytiga. And what's that? Oh, I got it right here. Hang on a second. Prednisone. That was my deal. And I stayed on that for like 18 to 20 months. And my PSA went down to below 1. Everything was good. About 8 months ago, I was told I was in, what do they call that?
Remission.
When everything's gone.
Remission.
Remission. I was told I was in remission. And prior to that, in the very beginning, I also met another doctor through my oncologist. She was a radiologist oncologist. And she looked at my scans and everything and said, listen, I see your scans. I believe that my cancer, when it metastasized to a lymph node just outside of my prostate. And her take was that she felt it was curable, and she wanted to be aggressive and do radiation. So I winded up going for 5 days a week for 9 weeks, 45 treatments, which was fine, no problem. And with that, I thought I was going to be, fairly okay as far as the metastasizing, which changed the other day, Thursday. I went to my oncologist because I went for a new PSMA scan, the new latest and greatest, and it showed that my cancer was back into my lymph node in my pelvic area, and that started me on what I was on originally, the Eligard, the Zytiga, and that. So that's where I'm at. I also went to see my oncologist because my urologist kind of threw that news at me that I didn't expect, and she was gone 2 minutes later. So I never had a chance to really discuss it with her. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I had to go for physical therapy, and then took a ride over to my urologist, who is Dr. Dan, and he took me right in. We sat in his office for a half hour. He read the report, and the report I gave you, Bill, from the PSMA scan, and he says, nothing to worry about. We'll just, I got so much I can do for you. Don't worry about a thing. And that's where I'm at.
Now, Mike, how soon after you started the Lupron and Zytiga did you do the radiation?
Let me just think about that a second. It was almost in the very beginning.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't, yeah.
It wasn't months later. It was pretty close. Let me see. I'm looking at that. Let's see. Axumin scan, lymph nodes, Mayo Clinic. Oh, that was another thing. We have a Mayo Clinic down here.
Mhm.
And when I did get diagnosed, I went to like 4 different doctors for opinions. And one of them was in the Mayo Clinic. And he said to me, well, if I were you, I would go home and work on my bucket list.
Hmm.
Sort of like you, Billy.
Wow.
And I said, oh, really? See you later. Because I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I got no patience for somebody that, a doctor that does that to you. That's just bullshit. Excuse my language.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, no, I've been told that I'm incurable. I was told to get my house in order.
Yep.
And yeah, these are not the types of encouraging things, and they're not reflective of the outcomes that we can actually have. So,
the most important part
Mhm.
that I haven't told you about was in the very beginning, I said to my oncologist, is there any support groups or anybody I can talk to, blah, blah, blah. And she told me about the one that they have at the hospital. And I don't know how I got involved with Engelman's Angels, but lo and behold, the next person that I dealt with was Bill Lewis. And I thank God every day for Bill Lewis, because Bill Lewis helped me dramatically through my beginning. You know, everything, when you first find out about this, the first, couple of months are kind of scary.
Yeah.
But Bill was there 100% and just put me at ease.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we
I
talk.
just love to help out.
Yeah, I actually think that Bill Lewis was one of the first phone numbers of a member that I got as well. I ended up asking a bunch of questions to someone else, but I pretty much remember back. My not to divert the conversation too much here, but my very first meeting for the that I went to of the IPCSG was a roundtable like this one, except in person, obviously. And what was so nice was, I had just been told 2 weeks before that, surgery had failed and I was going to be having to have more, a couple more years of treatment. And to be able to look at other men who had gone through the journey that I was about to start in on or continue on, and see where they were at that time and how well they had fared was extremely reassuring. To everybody. And then of course, obviously it was, here are people that I can ask, like, what is this like? Is this the right thing to do for me? What do you think? So yeah. Thanks so much for everybody that has given that.
Well, that was
in the past.
that was Bill for me. Everything I did, I ran by Bill first.
Yeah.
And if Bill wasn't in agreement, then I would go back to the doctor and say, we got to do something different.
Yeah. Now,
because I have a hard time trusting doctors, although I have a couple of friends that are doctors. But you guys know what I'm talking about. They sometimes are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is what it is.
Yeah. Now,
I wanted to ask you guys one question. All this time, I've been diagnosed, I've almost 3 years now, and I haven't had no pain. Sure, I got a problem with urination, but it ain't that bad. I'm on tamsulosin and another drug. I'm trying to think what it is from my urologist. But anyway, no real big problems there. Of course, I can't have sex, but that's fine with me too. My life is I never expected to live as long as I'm living. My father was 51 years old when he died of cancer.
Wow.
My mother died about 3 years ago. She was 86. So I'm the only one in my family that I know that had prostate cancer.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm the lucky one.
Except for your cousin. Maybe we should go to the second slide.
Okay.
To the
go
next
right ahead.
slide.
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna ask, you did, when you said, when you had radiation, that there was no problem. Did you have any kind of side effects with the radiation?
I got a little bit tired
Hmm.
about middle way through. Nothing dramatic.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Nothing dramatic. It was, I mean, I would drive to the hospital every morning, 8 o'clock, which is only about 10 minutes, 15 minutes from my house. I'd sit in the parking lot till I got a phone call from the doctor to come in, because we were also dealing with the virus, and it went well. I no problems,
Yeah.
really, no problems at all.
And I see that you have the space or gel.
Yes.
Is that just I'm not too familiar with it, and I don't hear about a lot of people having it these days.
I'll tell you in a nutshell. Somebody, I don't know who it was, but when you have this radiation, the radiation goes through everything. Okay, so if they're radiating your prostate, it's not only getting your prostate, it's getting your colon, it's getting it. Well, anyway, the spacer gel is something that they inject into you through your backside, and it does not let the radiation go past your prostate to your colon or anything else. So it's a protection.
Yeah.
That's what that spacer gel is.
Yeah, it wasn't even mentioned as an option to me, and I certainly had digestive issues that developed from the radiation, and I know others do as well, whether it's proton or non-proton, and so I'm glad it's interesting to see that is still currently used. So I'm glad that helped you a lot.
Because my cousin was recently diagnosed. He's 74, and I told him. And he's not metastasized. He's strictly in his prostate, and it wasn't real bad. But they're gonna radiate him. I said, make sure they give you the spacer gel. Mm-hmm. Talk to your doctor, and you tell him that's it. And then I talked to him about the two different kinds, the regular radiation and the proton. And I discussed it with a couple of doctors, and I winded up going for the regular, not the proton, because I didn't get anybody that gave me, it's going to make a big difference. Mm-hmm. And to go for the proton, I would have had to drive back and forth to Jacksonville, which would have been about an hour and 20-minute ride every day. And I said, screw that.
Yeah.
I can do this right here. And that's what I did. So I'll go back to my second slide, which is background, complications, family history. My father was a great man, died way too young. I was with him when he died. He died a terrible death. He was being, the doctor that he had, now we're talking about 40-something years ago, I was treating him for an ulcer, and he winded up having lymphoma, stomach cancer. And he was in the best hospital in New York, Mount Sinai. Anyway, he died, and it was a horrible death. He suffered dramatically, and his father died, my grandfather, at 58 from an enlarged heart. So I'm figuring 58, 51, probably around 47 I got till, and here I am 71, so I got nothing to complain about. My mother's been like a rock for years. But she finally passed a couple of years back, and not from cancer, I guess. She was 85, I think, something like that. And then I had a couple of cousins. One cousin, a young kid, he was 57 3 years ago. He got diagnosed with not prostrate. What's the other one? The worst one?
Colon,
No, it starts with a P.
Pancreatic.
Pancreatic cancer.
Oh,
The poor guy was, I mean, he was healthy as a horse. He was built like a
linebacker.
wrestler. I mean, strong, young, healthy. 6 months later, he was dead. That was bad. My other cousin, we just found out that I told you about my cousin Tony. He lives down here. The one I told him about the space suit gel, but he'll be fine. Let's see. And my last 5-6 years, I had a bad back. I've had 3 surgeries on my back. I got a neurostimulator implanted in my back. That started probably 10 years ago. Neurostimulator has been in for about 2-3 years, but I can't play golf anymore. It really sucks because I live on a golf course. I live on a magnificent golf course in the state of Florida, right on the intercoastal. It was like I died and went to heaven when I moved here. Anyway, it is what it is, you know. I take what I can get, and then all of a sudden, I had to go to the hospital, the emergency room, and I'm in the emergency room. I can't remember what I was there for. And I had this young doctor looking at me, a woman. She could have been 30 years old. And she looked at my right leg. She says, "Does it hurt?" I said, "A little bit." She immediately sent me for a test to find out, Doppler, where they found out I had a DVD blood clot. Okay, so now I had to deal with that. Which was no big deal. You know, I just put me on a blood thinner and that's working. I haven't had any more problems. I've had a number of bouts in the last 2 years with skin cancer, my head, top of my head, my face, arms, back. I think I had 11 surgeries with skin cancer, which are a real pain in the ass. As a matter of fact, the skin cancer has given me more problems than the prostate cancer. I fell a couple of times. I shattered my ankle. I had to have plate screws put in. That's okay. I'm dealing with that. I haven't had COVID. I had pneumonia. I stopped the prednisone, and I stopped it without.
Too
I was
fast.
told by the doctor to stop it, but not, wean myself off. I just stopped it, and I got some really bad side effects, which I told her about. So then they put me back on and then weaned me off.
And that was the prednisone that was prescribed in a simultaneous to the Zytiga?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, that's part of the protocol.
Right, right.
And with that, now as we went along down the road, and I'm going through my the Eligard and the prednisone and the Zytiga, and my PSA went down to way down. I mean, from 40 something, it went down to less than 1. And then at one point, it rose back in April. It went from, I'm going to go back, let's say February was like 1, it was 0.05. Next month it was 0.06. And then April it went to 1.4. And then my doctor freaked out about that and wanted to put me on chemotherapy, Taxotor. And I said, absolutely not a chance until we do a PET scan, because I want to know what's going on. So we did a PET scan, the regular old PET scan, and it showed nothing. So instead of putting me on Taxotor, they put me on Eligard. And then I finally got to get the PSMA scan last July 5th, and it showed that it was back into my lymph nodes in my pelvic area, and that's where I'm at today. And my PSA is down to like 0.06. So my PSA never went up badly when I found out about the PSMA scan that showed that I went to that my cancer came back into the lymph nodes. And I hope I'm understandable, because I got no idea what I'm talking about anymore.
No, you're making a lot of sense here. Making a lot of sense.
Yeah, so a message here is that cancer can come back even when the PSA is not very large. And I was just talking yesterday with someone whose doctor at UCSD said, you couldn't possibly have metastases since your PSA is under 10. It's like, no, folks, you need to be really careful. And that PSMA scan is wonderful.
Yeah, certainly if you've had your prostate removed, the whole scale of when to worry about a rising PSA starts from a much lower level.
Yeah, that's what I'm understanding. And I had a nice conversation with my urologist, who I like a lot. We became friends. And he just basically, he said to me, don't worry about a thing. There's so much I can do for you that we'll be sitting here for another 20 years. I said, I'm not sitting, I don't want to live another 20 years. I can't afford to live that long. My grandkids are taking all my money as it is.
Yeah. There's two ways to look at that comment. Some doctors say that in order to discourage questions, to basically show that they're confident in what they're doing, and that you don't need to do all the research yourself. I mean, we're all advocates for, ensuring that conclusion is the same one that we would make about our own bodies. But it looks like Rick has a question that I think you can provide some advice for. How do you find a way to challenge or talk back to the doctor? Mike?
Listen, I've been in restaurant business for 50 years. I can talk to anybody. I have no problem. Excuse me. I have no problem getting in my doctor's face and saying, don't do nothing. The other day happened to be, it just caught me off guard. But I have no problem with getting into my doctor's face and saying, we're not going anywhere until we get some answers here. Just like that doctor from the Mayo Clinic who told me to go home and start working on my bucket list. My attitude was, screw you, get out of here. I'm not dealing with you. I don't want to talk to somebody like you. So what I've learned is you got to be your own advocate. You need help. You need a guy like Bill. And you got to have a good relationship with your doctors. But I don't take everything that they say as gospel. I double check and triple check.
Yeah.
Now, here's what happened. Another thing that you should know about. I was online, and I put in on YouTube what my new diagnosis was, that it reoccurred. And I got a video, who said that what they would do at that point is remove the lymph nodes. I told that to my urologist yesterday. He says, absolutely not. That's a miserable surgery, and it ain't gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
I said, no problem.
Yeah.
Go get yet another opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I listen to you, Bill. I will. I absolutely will.
Yeah.
We're part of this organization called Immerman Angels, and I'm trying to be an angel for Mike.
Yeah, he is. He's more than that. I feel like he's my brother.
That's nice of you to say. Yeah, to also give a little insight to Rick as well. I heard years ago, and this might have been from the TV show House. It might have been from a professor in college. I can't even remember, but it basically said that doctors only know what doctors say is only 50% correct, and they don't even know which 50% it is that's correct.
Yeah.
So they're certainly making the best advice that they can with the information that they know, but the information changes all the time. And so, yeah, as Mike said, you don't take it as gospel. You assess it in your own way for your own body.
Absolutely. Well, bottom line is the biggest help I've had hasn't been from doctors. It's been from Bill.
Mhm.
I mean, you need the doctors, no question about it. But if Bill tells me something, I believe it. If
That's what
doctors
support
tell me
groups are
something,
for.
I question it. What's that?
I say that's what support groups are for.
Yep.
We have a
without doubt.
wonderful community here at IPCSG,
Yep.
and we help each other.
I can see it. Now, Aaron, you said somebody wanted to ask me a question?
Yeah, that was Rick, and I had read it off from the chat.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think we've covered everything for Mike. Is that right?
Hello, this is Pat Miller. Please leave a message.
And yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get Pat up here at the moment, and Pat's call is going straight to voicemail. But
he didn't have your phone number, but I gave it to him, so he should be calling you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Pat, why don't you give me a call and we'll move on to your slides. And yeah, sorry, I know we took a lot of time talking with Mike. I'm sure there's some other burning questions out there, and we'll get to all the questions again for all the panelists at the end. But as soon as Pat calls me, there we go. Let's Pat, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. I don't have a video on you yet, and I still don't have the mute problem solved.
Okay.
But let's communicate. I think we're in good stead here.
All right. Tell you what. Can you turn off the
Speaker on your laptop, on your desktop?
yeah.
Done?
All right.
Okay, it should be you and I on the cell phone now.
Okay.
It sounds good out here.
All right. So Bill, you can hear Pat, and can you hear me as well?
Absolutely.
You and Bill are fine.
Okay.
We're getting.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Is
Yeah.
that better?
Are you sure, Pat? Are you sure that your computer is muted? And sorry, and I mean the speakers on your computer are muted.
I haven't turned off.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that killed the
Now the
feedback.
call's going to the computer.
No, everything is perfect right now. Everything sounds perfect.
I just turned the computer speakers back on.
I don't think. No, I think
No, we don't want them
computer
on.
speakers back off.
Okay, now I have no audio with you at all.
Oh, you can't hear me even. Oh, right. You can't.
Okay, now I've got clear audio with you. Can
Okay.
you hear me fine?
Yes, sorry. I had my phone muted. Let's leave your computer speakers off. I'll leave so you can hear through the phone. And why don't you go ahead?
I will. I was very interested in everything that Mike just said. It's virtually a reset for me. My Gleason score is 9, and that's a real shock when you get that call. And I immediately headed into radiation. I went through 36 treatments. Prostate, burned it up. The cancer traveled over to lumbar number 3, and that's a dangerous spot because if it eats through your nerves, your spinal column, then basically the bottom part of your body becomes paralyzed. And so that was another scary point. I might add that during all of these journeys with prostate cancer, I've never experienced any pain to speak of, nothing notable. The only discomfort that I've had would be from Zytiga. When you start taking it initially, the shock value on your body is fairly substantial. The sweats, shivers, electricity running through from top to bottom, and then it starts to wane. I've been on now for 21 months, and I'm up to 1,000 milligrams a day. I did take an experimental dip into dropping Zytiga in concurrence with the doctor, with the oncologist, and PSA jumped immediately. It jumped from 0.06 back up to 8. So does Zytiga work? Yes. Do you have to take prednisone with it? That's what they say. That's what I do. I would like to make a couple of generalized comments about cancer. My wife just passed away a day or two after Thanksgiving, and she had small cell carcinoma. And I went to Scripps with her for numerous visits, numerous medical people, and I'd sit in the lobby waiting for the next appointment to come up, and there were lots of cancer patients there. And the story pretty much repeats itself. My personal opinion is there's no such thing as remission. I hate to make such an all-inclusive statement of that, like that, but the point of fact is I'd be sitting next to people and they say, yeah, I was in remission for 3 years and now I'm back. And the lady would pull off her wig and her head was totally bald. And the other thing I have to say is if you can stick to radiation and to pills, you're much better than having to go into infusion treatment. It was a disaster for Mimi. She the cancer was so involved that after 4 treatments, the doctor pulled the black curtain down and says, there's just nothing else I can do. And it wasn't too much longer than she passed away. So the shock and the side effects from infusion therapy is pretty dramatic. There's different levels of it. It's been a trial balloon several times with my oncologist. Says, you're not going to be able to stay on Zytiga forever. You're going to have to switch to another drug. And so I'm prepared for that. But it will be a drug. It won't be infusion therapy. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in radiation. Dr. Patrick Gleason is here in San Diego County. He has an office in Encinitas, another one in Vista, and he's technically very correct, and he's also very involved in my case. He's treated over 450 patients, and he has a steel trap memory and a great mind, and he's very I suppose the right word would be compassionate. And I enjoy visiting with him. I make sure I take a treat into staff every time I go in there. They have a smile on their face. I have a smile on my face. You want to be as friendly and as good a patient as you can possibly be, and that's I don't go in there and complain. They hear that all the time. I don't whine. And I make sure that everything's on an upbeat note. I have my questions written down in advance. I send them over via the Scripps portal so that they have a chance to think before they talk. And then I leave space between each of my questions on my sheet of paper. They help me fill in the blanks and we go to the next step. So again, I speak very highly of the radiologist. He is amazing.
What was his name again?
Dr. Patrick Gleason, Linson. And to turn the next page, I am not the same ilk with the oncologist. I don't want to be biased, but I will, prejudice, whatever, but he's an import, and they have a different line of thinking about society and what you do in medicine. Basically, he's a time card puncher, and I need to move on. So before I move on, because we're playing with my life, not his. It's as simple as that. And I'm not getting answers. I'm not getting progression moving forward. And it's easy to make that complaint about medical people. That's the first thing. I heard it coming from Mike. I hear it coming from all other people. And now you hear it coming from me. So it's easy to pick on a doctor, but I am going to make a change. But before I make the change, I want to make sure that my story is clear. I do a lot of spreadsheets. So I'm going to start my case, which started 5 years ago. My 5th year anniversary is coming up. And I'm going to put on Excel the Gleason score, my PSA. I've probably had 25 blood tests. You can see it jump up and down. I changed the dosage on Zytiga, and that made it jump up and down. And then I've had 5 sessions of radiation, and I'm going to plot those. And that gives us all a roadmap, me and my new doctor, whoever that might be, to see the case rather than try to read through a bunch of case files, because they get bored with that. You know, they're like everybody else. They put in a working day, and oh my goodness, here comes another patient. I gotta, as soon as the session's finished, I gotta type up the results and just do it over and over. And so, like I said, the oncologist that I have is quite bored with it, or he's bored with me. And it shows. I can feel it. He can feel it. And I need to make a change. So you can't be afraid of making a change. That's the next thing, is you have to take the lead. You have to be willing to score. You got to get across the goal line. And that's what I'm going to do, is to make sure that I can put another 5 years on my 79-year-old life. If I make it to 5, I'm happy. If I make it 5 more, well, then that would be outstanding. But I'm not going to get the next 5 unless I make some conclusive moves. And like I said, I'm going to reduce my history onto a spreadsheet, which will read like a book. You turn the page, you can see the progression of what's gone on, and it'll make it much easier to diagnose and much easier to arrive at conclusions.
Absolutely.
So anyway, my PSA is on a slight rise. It was traveling nicely at 0.06. About 3 months ago, it started to rise. Got up to 0.29, 1.75, 2.61. Dropped a little, 2.2, 2.1 now, back up to 2.6. So I'm definitely on the rise. And one of the things that Bill has pointed out is the new scans, which are amazing. According to my radiologist, the scan can pick up cancer cells, or not cells, but cancer spots the size of a BB, maybe even the size of a grain of sand. So my treatment of cancer right now is search and destroy. The Zytiga is not going to hold my PSA down much longer at the level that it needs to be held down. So as soon as Medicare clears it, you have to have a rising PSA to get back in there for another scan, which I do. Then I'm going to come back into the PSMA scan and get that done. And
Next slide.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, next slide, right? There. Well, yeah, we had that. Aren't we on to well, we've got that to discuss, but it seems like, yeah, looking forward is where you're really talking at the moment.
Yeah, my next move, like I said, is another PSMA scan. It's the latest, it's the greatest. There were a few years where the only place to get it was UCLA and the University of San Francisco. And it's now pretty much common practice in San Diego, as I understand. There's like 15 different locations where it can be had. And then the other thing that I'm looking forward to is called SBRT radiation. So for all your listeners, I noticed that there's 31 participants out there. You need to learn this alphabet soup and know what these different things are and what they do. And so SBRT radiation, the secret to that, different from the PET scans that have been out prior, is that they have a recipe that I don't think they make it with a pistol and a mortar, but they make it up right on the site, because the shelf life on it's only about an hour. And so you have to ingest some water and get your system liquefied a little bit, and then they inject it. They give it 15-20 minutes to work itself through your blood system, and then they flop you down on the table, turn on the scanner, and you've got 15-20 minutes on the table, and then after that the dye has lost its effectiveness. So it's a quick moving deal, but the radiation is very conclusive. They can radiate and find those spots. I still have the gold feeds installed from my initial prostate work that was done. I have the tattoos, so they have the Google map of my body down pretty well, and they can zone in on it very fast. Dr. Linson, he's the most efficient fireman I've ever been around in my life. I mean, this guy's amazing. Absolutely astounding. And so I have a great deal of trust in him. like I said, I need to switch channels on the oncology. A couple of other political observations is that cancer is very insidious. None of us want to die from it, and that includes me at the top of the list. After watching my wife go away, so it's not going to give up. It's going to be a lifelong battle from my observation. In my particular case, I don't know how your other listeners are feeling about it, but the word remission is a complete misnomer. I assume that cancer comes in from things we eat, the air we breathe, the Roundup that we put on our weeds. Who knows? And so modern society has produced a lot of cancer-producing elements. So it's a matter of bobbing and weaving and keeping your medical people tuned in with you and concentrating on it. To me, it's just like paying bills or watching the news. I have to do something every day. I say I'm going to sit down, I'm going to give it a half hour, maybe an hour, and I'm going to concentrate on my cancer. What is the next step? What do I have to do to make sure that I get my 5-year stay alive goal accomplished? And because if you just think, well, I'm going to take a 90-day vacation, or I'm just going to forget about it for a while, it will Arkansas you. It really will sneak up. And like I said, I saw it happen firsthand with my bride of 51 years, and it's no fun. Yeah. Right, guys.
Yeah, Pat, I'm sorry to hear that you lost your wife so recently. And that is great advice about, spending a definitive amount of time every day looking into your case. I know that for me, I at one point, went through like a downward spiral where really all I did all day was think about, what is the next step? And it became a matter of like, let me look for yet another doctor to get an opinion from today, as I was at the time out of work, not looking at, out on disability, that is, waiting for the next steps after my surgery had healed up enough that I could start the whatever was going on. And it's good to set aside time for it, as well as to keep that time limited so that it doesn't completely consume your life. I like that idea of a half an hour every day.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
I'd like to also comment about surgery versus radiation on the prostate, which seems to be the launching pad for treatment that everybody has to go through. They treat the prostate first. If it metastasizes someplace else, well, then you start search and destroy mission there. But I fell into radiation more by accident than by design. After the urologist referred me out, he says, you should probably talk to Dr. Gleason, and I never even considered surgery. I have 5 friends, old fraternity brothers, you name it, real estate partners, and they've all had surgery, and they wish they had gone another direction. And I assume that the only other direction in the medical vernacular right now is radiation. So people are scared of the thought of radiation. They think nuclear explosion. Like that. That's not the case. There's photon and there's proton, and photon is pretty much the common man's way to go. Proton therapy. They do have a proton center here in San Diego. It has its own nuclear accelerator. It's 3 stories below ground. It's 3 stories above grade. It's a $220 million deal that's been in and out of the bankruptcy court several times, and the fee, as I understand it, is $75,000. So you come in there for 3 days, and the difference supposedly is the radiation point goes in to an exact point, and it does not go past, and it doesn't burn going in, it doesn't burn going past the spot that's being radiated. Photon therapy, by comparison, is a process where it's almost like the beam of a flashlight. Yeah, you're shining the light on the object that you want to look at, but there's light that goes beyond it. And so Mike pointed out that they did put in a block. And I've not had that done, but I know that some people do have to have that done. but as far as radiation therapy, the follow-up on it and the scans show that it works. And it's so precise, depending on the technicians that are administering the machines and monitoring them, then they're doing fine work. It is absolute precision work. I'm a firm believer in it. So for your other participants that are out there, if they're wondering which way to go, my advocacy is 100% for radiation.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a quick question? This is for anyone. I had radiation. I had 9 weeks, 5 days a week. I went to, I didn't use the proton. Okay, that's the one that you're talking about, Pat. Is anybody have, if you were going to have radiation, would you go proton or would you go the other way? Or does it make a difference?
You want to go proton because that's what I had, that's what I know. And by the way, radiation can be dangerous. We have a lady friend of ours that passed away, and they had radiated the cancer just below her pancreas and burned a hole in the top of her stomach, which they could not get to close. And it took a while, but she eventually passed away. I think it was like 4 months. So, you know, accidents can happen in medicine. They haven't happened to me. And so, like I said, I'll take a stand on that issue. I'm very pleased. If you have to have something done, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tune in regarding proton versus photon. We have speakers pretty regularly who are experts in both areas. And really, it appears that the consensus is that most of the time, protons are just fine, and that there are some very special cases, especially with brain cancer, where photons are better. And there are a few cases with prostate cancer. And since we recommend lots of second opinions, you know, if you come up against that, you check with both kinds of doctors, and you find out if you're one of the cases where the photons would help.
Bill, can
Yeah, but I should qualify everything. I said some people refer to it as cyber knife.
No, CyberKnife is basically SBRT, which is the nominally 5 courses of radiation, and I think it can be done. SBRT, which is essentially the same as CyberKnife, can be done with either protons or photons, as I understand it.
Well, I beg to differ with you, Bill. I've had photon therapy, CyberKnife, quote unquote, and that's where I started. I had 36 treatments, and then my most recent, and cancer does move. It's moved from my prostate to my L3 lumbar to my right femur, and then it showed its ugly face in my left pubic bone. I didn't even know we had pubic bones till I found out that I got cancer in one side of it. So they shot that with SBRT radiation, and that was with the new dye to trace it with, and and the X-rays working at the same time. They got the gold seeds to line up. It's like trigonometry. You've got 3 points to locate in, and I just can't speak highly enough for it, and no pain. Yeah, the only discomfort I've had during my entire course, to be repetitive, is with the side effects from Zytiga, and so I'm not ready to cross that threshold to go into chemotherapy, which is infusion therapy. I think, I'm not sure I'd pack it in at that point, but like I said, I saw what happened with Mimi, and it's just not for me.
They say that the Taxotor, they were going to do that to me.
Mhm.
And the people that I spoke to, including my oncologist and urologist, said it's very tolerable and it works well. I didn't take it because I just have this problem with going for chemotherapy. But if that was what I have to do, and Bill gave me okay, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I've also heard, and I think it's true, you have to be somewhat of a maniac for exercise. I stay in the weight room 3 to 4 days a week, but I've done that all my life. And one thing it does is that it pushes your limits both mentally and physically, and that means you can push back. You have to have something to burn to be able to battle cancer. You have to have, you need a greater force. So it's a mind control, body control thing. Said I can whip this, I can do it, and I need strength to do it, and that's where I get it. There's not a lot of people that will do that. They prefer running or swimming or golfing or whatever their passion is. But I found that pushing weight definitely helps me bring myself to another level to say I'm not gonna get beat. I'm just not gonna get whipped. I'm not gonna let it knock me down.
Yeah, Pat, I want to move on to Bob in just a minute. I think this was your last slide. Was there anything more that you wanted to say about the slide in particular?
Testosterone, that is suppression. I wish there would be a medical breakthrough to find a way to where the medical people don't deplete your testosterone, because it does weaken your muscles. I've noticed with my legs and in my balance. It hasn't gone up to my upper torso yet, but I used to have legs of steel, and now they're more like spaghetti.
Yeah.
So
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I think the Zytiga destroyed my body. I used to have a pretty strong guy, and now it's I have no strength whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that definitely is good information, and part of why they stress so much doing regular weightlifting or running impact efforts in order to keep the muscle and bone density up while we're on the Lupron and Zytiga. It really is a very important thing to do, and not let the medications get ahead of you. I know that some guys say, oh yeah, well, once I start feeling fatigue, then I'll deal with changing my lifestyle and hitting the gym more. And really, I think that's, in my case, I would guess that would have been too late. I started hitting the gym just as soon as they started. As soon as I decided that I was going to start taking the Lupron and Zytiga, and it definitely did help me stay healthier throughout the time. I certainly had problems too with a lot of loss of bone density, but it will only help. All right, so Pat, we all set on your end? If so, I'll move on to Bob. And of course, we'll come back to the very end and ask questions, allow everybody out there to ask questions of everybody. Sound good?
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, Pat, I'm going to mute you here off of my phone, but otherwise keep you on here. So you can turn your speakers back on your, well, I take that back. I'm just going to leave it the way it is because it seems to be working. Bob, why don't you take it away from here? Let me get to your slides here.
Okay, you ready for me?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me. I was diagnosed in May of 2019 through the traditional 12-core biopsy. 3 of my cores came back as positive with a Gleason of 3+4. The highest my PSA got was 5.9. But my journey started when I was in my early 30s. My dad came home and said he had prostate cancer. And I said, what in the heck's a prostate? Do I have one of those? And he assured me I did. And then 2 years later, his brother got prostate cancer. They both lived full, healthy lives and did not die from prostate cancer. So after I was diagnosed, I did all kinds of research. I talked to lots of different men, talked to guys who had the SBT, who had the CyberKnives, proton therapy, prostatectomy, and I decided the best thing for me was proton therapy. I had 28 successful treatments of proton therapy through Dr. Rossi down in San Diego. I happen to live in San Diego. And I had very little pain other than urgency and pain when I pee. But about 15, 16 days after my last treatment, it stopped. I got down there 10 days, so it might have been 10 days. But I will say that I exercised every day. I rode my road bike. I worked out with weights, and now I'm playing a whole lot of pickleball. But during my radiation treatments and after my radiation treatments, you know, I had no incontinence problems, no ED problems. I didn't have to go on Lipitor or any of that. So I do have a couple of additions to that. So my PSA, it got as high as 5.9. After my treatments, my 6-month follow-up, my PSA dropped to 1.4, I believe it was. And then it went down to 1.2. And then at my 2-year checkup, it bounced to 1.4. But my doctor said, hey, you're going to be fine. I don't want to see you for a year. Well, 2 weeks later, I started having a whole lot of pain when I was going pee. And I got back into my urologist 3 days later. He did an ultrasound on my belly, and I had a kidney stone.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a pit. So I had that removed, but my PSA bumped up to a 1.7. It's starting to hurt when I go pee again. This is 2-3 months later. I had another kidney stone.
Oh.
So I know. So they go in and they take that out. So now I'm at about 6, 7, 8 months of chasing these stinking kidney stones, and it still hurts to go pee. I suggested to my doctor, hey, can I have a MRI of the pelvic region with and without contrast? And he goes, sure, why not? Well, it comes back with a spot on my sacrum. And I about hit the roof. I freaked out. I said, well, a sacrum, a spot? And, you know, of course, the doctor said, oh, yeah, that's metastasized prostate cancer. I'm going, what? Me? What? So I called Bill, and he calmed me down right away. And he, too, became my best friend and still is. All you guys. So anyways, they said, well, we recommend a bone scan. So I had the bone scan. And it's still hurting when I go pee. I have the bone scan, and it comes back with the exact same spot. Then they recommended a PET scan, PSMA, and I got that. And of course, that came back with the same spot on my sacrum. So Dr. Rossi said, hey, well, you know what? You got to go in and get interventional radiology and get a bone biopsy. So I talked to a bunch of guys from the group I'm talking with now, especially Bill. I talked to some other friends, and some said, get the biopsy. Others said, don't get the biopsy. Well, I decided to get the biopsy because I had to know. I just had to know. And I just got my results, and that bone biopsy came back negative to cancer. They called it a keratin positive gland. I don't know if that means anything to anyone, but it says, consider, I'm looking at the notes right here. It says, consider this biopsy negative. And that was room to celebrate. My girlfriend and I celebrated a whole bunch.
Wow.
Can I ask a question? What is a sacrum?
The sacrum is part of your pelvic bone. So below the belt line. I will say, and if anybody has any input, I still hurts like heck when I go pee. Not having any trouble with ED. I do have an appointment with my urologist on Tuesday to say, my gosh, fix me. He did just put me on a round of antibiotics. And it seems like that's what they always want to do.
Automatic.
Yeah. So I am totally open for suggestions. So my last PSA was a 1.7, and I'm 3 years out exactly. And I don't feel like I missed anything. Aaron, do you?
let's see. We do have a couple things here. I plotted your PSA here and
Right.
labeled the doubling time, since many times the doubling time on the PSA is of such interest. And I know
Right.
you'd said that you'd started tracking your PSA around 40, where it was just over 1, I believe. And it
Yes.
looked like it started out as doubling about every 10 years, and then sped up a little bit, doubling every about 3 years, and then got even quicker, doubling about every 2.5 years. Can you tell us all what it was that made you decide to move forward with treatment, or to not seek additional treatment, as well as were you following any of the typical active surveillance guidance during this time?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. So yeah, in my 40s, I started getting tested, and that's where all these numbers come from. And I'm a retired fireman. I had 32 years on the job, so they tested us every year. They wanted to keep us healthy. And like it shows on the chart, my PSA was great till I hit about 52. And when I was 55, I think, let me just see here. When I was 55, it was 5.5 when I went to my primary care provider. And he looked at me and he says, "Bob, the elephant in the room is your PSA. You got to go see a urologist." So I went and seen the urologist, and he said, "Let's try a round of antibiotics." We did. I came back. My PSA was 5.9. And he says, "I recommend you have a 12-core biopsy." And I did talk to the guys at the prostate, this group here, and they said, "You know what? Something's going on in there. You got to get that biopsy." Had the biopsy, 3 cores, did tons of research, went and met with Dr. Rossi in San Diego, and he too said, "Bob, you can do active surveillance. You can have a prostatectomy, you can have radiation, or you can have proton beam radiation." And he says, "Let's talk about proton beam radiation, because that's what I do." And and so he was just so calm and informed, and I believe he's had over 10,000 cases that he's treated. So after I had that discussion with him, I went home and I thought about it. I talked to more guys. They have a list of guys that have had proton therapy, and at the Proton Center, it's called the Champions List, and I happen to be on that. Guys can call me anytime they want to. And then at Loma Linda, where they also do this, they have a list of hundreds of guys. And so I tried to find guys who had prostate cancer when they were my age. I was 56 when I was diagnosed, 59 now. And then 20 years later, guys that would take my phone call that were in their, mid to late 70s. And I was able to talk like 2 or 3 that said, "I have had absolutely no problems from when I had the proton therapy until now, except for, some occasional ED problem, but that just comes with age too." Mm-hmm. So I said, "I just can't leave this in my body. I'm doing the radiation." And all of these tests are saying that there is absolutely no cancer in my body, but I do still have, frequency of urination, and it still hurts. I hate to go pee.
Yeah. Sorry, going through that.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I don't really take a whole lot of supplements, but I do take some. I take fish oil, I take vitamin D, I take a probiotic, and I take Flomax 0.4 every day. And yeah, the support group there.
Yeah. A couple things I want to say before we open it up to everyone for questions. I also did suffer a bit from pain, off and on, during radiation, obviously, but I was not sexually active until probably 2 to 3 years after my surgery and radiation, because I was single at the time, and I just got married just short of 2 years ago. And shortly after that, I was having a lot of pain after sex. And my doctor, he tried Flomax, he tried, I forget if there was an antibiotic at first, And I'm actually now on Celebrex, which is essentially like, I believe for
Inflammation.
yeah, it's for inflammation, and there's a generalized, like when people have kind of like a, you know, non-determined source of pain. There's a yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it's kind of generally used for, you know, in general pain, and that has actually helped me quite a bit. I was quite surprised. So it might be something to investigate. The alternative was naproxen, which I believe is similar to Aleve, and I've had like heart palpitations with Aleve, so I avoided that one. Yeah. But yeah. And,
okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, and have you had essentially the scope?
Twice.
Bill, help me with the words here. Twice.
It's cystoscopy.
Yeah. I had it a couple of times, and the first time, the doctor felt that I had a cyst that was appearing, but that went away, luckily, because otherwise he was going to, you know, he'd automatically decided that I was going to go in for some procedure, and you know, it's definitely another case where, like, you know, I make the decisions, the doctor's not going to make the decision about a procedure I'm going to have. But,
you know, when I had my cystoscopy, you know, going in through the penis, they wanted to do it in the office. And I said, there is no way in hell that you guys are going to do that to me in the office. I said, I need to be put out for that. And luckily my insurance covered it. Because I'm a retired fireman, anything cancer related is picked up via the city. And every time they go in, they say, your bladder looks good. Your, you know, everything going in there looks good. They go in to get the stone, they come out. So yeah, that's and you know, one thing I wanted to mention was when I had my PSMA and when I had my my MRI of the pelvic region, is when I get nervous, I don't know about you guys, but I got to go pee. I have the sense of urgency, man, and I'm just going, oh, I'm never going to be able to go into this tube in the last 30 minutes. So it gave me even more. They told me 30 minutes is how long the test took. So every time I go into these tubes, man, I'm going, I got to go pee. I got to go pee. I got to go pee. So every time I went in, I introduced myself to these guys, and I said, I'm stressed out about this. And they said, well, you'll have to come back another day if we can't finish the test. But the guy that did my PSMA, he said, Bob, if you got to go pee while I'm giving you this test, we will stop the test. You're going to go pee. You'll get back on. I'll be able to start right where we left off. I almost started crying. I hugged him and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to be just fine. And of course I was. Good. But that's something to take home, is they can stop this on test. So that was my last tidbit I had.
Yeah. Have also last question for me, and then we'll open it up to everybody. Has there been any consideration that it could be a hernia?
Nobody's even talked about. Nobody's even pushed on my belly. I'm making a note. Thank you.
And the only reason I ask that is because my brother-in-law was going through several months of pain, and there was a history of kidney stones. There was even a current kidney stone. And in the end, even after passing the last kidney stone, still, actually, he also was having, he was passing some amount of blood, but there was a lot of pain off and on. And eventually they actually gave him a hernia surgery, and that's what solved his pain problem.
Wow. So that'll be the first question for me on Tuesday.
Check and see. Yeah.
Thank you.
And, yeah. And they were constantly doing, you know, odds and ends of MRIs, not necessarily a complete scan either. They just, his ordeal was like a year long trying to get this down. So
it's been mine. Yeah. It's been a year and my poor girlfriend, it's like, baby, it hurts when I go pee, and it hurts when, you know, after I finish with sex this last year. It's like, oh my gosh, it feels like when I sit down, I'm sitting on razor blades, you know, from my rear end. It's like, oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
But hey, excuse me, Aaron.
Yeah.
Bob. I'm on, my urologist put me on tamsulosin, which is Flomax,
Yes, sir.
and he also put me on my Betrix. Anybody, Bill, I'm sure you know what that is.
Actually not.
Oh, okay. Well,
And I'll look it up.
it's another drug that I take from my urologist as far as my urination and stuff like that. I probably get up 1 to 2 times a night to pee, where I was getting up 5 times a night. But I'm not having any pain. I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
My Betrix is, it's not cheap, but you know, we have good insurance, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Pat, I'm giving you a call back here. Why don't we bring you back on like we had you before, and we'll open it up to questions. So what has worked well in the past is for people to click the, raise your hand button. You can raise your hand and I'll try to call on you. There's also, we also had a pretty decent job of people, waiting for each other to finish and then speaking up as well. So if you can't figure out how to raise your hand, then go ahead and we'll start with Rick in a minute, but go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask the question as well. And I've turned off my sharing. And I would also say, if you'd like to, turn on your video if you care to, as you're asking your question, and we'll go around ask questions of anyone. So Rick, why don't we start with you? Go ahead. And
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
sorry, I take that back. Pat, are you able to hear us just fine?
I can hear you.
Okay, and can everyone hear Pat okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Rick, go ahead.
I can't start my video. It says you have to start my video.
Gotcha. Okay. Go ahead and start your question.
Now, I am due to start Medicare next year, and I'm at Kaiser now. I'm just wondering if anyone can give me some good advice about Medicare. I just finished the IMRT with Dr. Munt at UCSD, and my PSA went from a 9 to a 3. And I just I'm not confident about what future I have with Kaiser.
Mhm.
Although I'm pretty satisfied with Kaiser now, I don't have much, no horror stories.
How old are you now?
I'm 64.
When I turned 65, that was my last day with Kaiser.
Yes. Why is that?
You can get much more focused, informed treatment elsewhere, in my humble opinion.
Now, Kaiser did refer me to UCSD and Dr. Munt, and I feel satisfied with that relationship.
Yeah, I do believe that it has come up in the past that Kaiser here in San Diego has a contract with UCSD to do all of the radiation treatment for prostate cancer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have a good point. I mean, I cannot speak directly as well, but because I'm not familiar with Kaiser. But I have heard other people, besides just Bill just now saying that, and as Pat is also saying here on the phone here, if you didn't hear him, that yeah, moving away from Kaiser when going on to Medicare was what they did.
Aaron, can you plug me in for just a second?
Well, what when I enroll in Medicare, what should I be choosing? I mean, supplements. I have to.
That's what I'd like to talk about, Aaron.
Sorry, Gene, I can hear you. Yeah,
I can hear him.
We can all hear you, Gene.
I can recommend a lady that's worked with our group for a long time that deals in helping people make the best choices on insurance.
I think one of the things to consider is comparing apples to apples, because once you go on Medicare, you can either go on a HMO plan, which of course is Kaiser or United Healthcare or Scripps, all in a Medicare Advantage, which is essentially a Kaiser style program, or you can pony up money for a supplement plan, which can be very reasonable to expensive. So that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. So if you're going to be on a Medicare Advantage program, staying on Kaiser might be just as well as going on one with Scripps or Sharp or any of the others. But if you want higher end care, then you have to go on to a supplement plan, which means being able to pay for it.
Does that answer your question, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, the opinions are good to hear.
And we can give you several names of people. I think Jean Van Vliet was referring to Patricia DeLeo, and there are a couple of other people that you can talk to that will guide you when it's time to make the decision as you turn 65.
Yeah.
Who can I call to get hooked up with Patricia or some other expert on Medicare?
Both Jean's and my numbers are on the homepage of the website, and we can both tell you.
Okay, I'll get off the question then. Thank you very much.
Great. And I think that before we go on to I'm going to go to Hirsch, then I'm going to go to William. But I know that in the past we talked about potentially having a Medicare related discussion or something on the either website or other newsletter type of thing, discussing some of the subtleties of Medicare plans around the time of year that I guess that it comes up for where you elect to join whichever plan. But yeah, we'll discuss that. But I'd look for that maybe later in the year, something like October. Yeah. Sounds good. All right, let's go to Hirsch. I saw that you had your hand up there. Go ahead.
I'm with Kaiser and presently seeing Dr. Munt at the Moores Cancer Center. I find what I'm receiving from Kaiser and Moores to be excellent. What it does is limits me. So if I wanted to go to the Mayo Clinic, I can't go there. They'll say, "What's your insurance?" And I'll say, "I don't have any insurance. I'm with an HMO." Well, they say, "Then we can't help you." So if you want the broadest range of possibilities in cancer treatment, then you'll want to go with Medicare supplementary. If you want to stay with Kaiser and Moores, that'll also be an excellent choice. Which way you go, that's a tough one.
Yeah. William, you had your hand up as well. Did you want to unmute yourself and ask a question or make a comment? Hang on, we need to unmute you there. William Sandberg, can you unmute? And we're not hearing you. Oh, there we go. Go ahead. Unfortunately, we're still not hearing you. Maybe you have the same issue with the microphone muted outside of Zoom. Why don't you try opening the mute icon from Zoom and testing the microphone? And let me give you a minute to do that. Is there somebody else that'd like to ask a question or make a comment while William's working on his audio? Pat, why don't you go ahead?
During all these travels, has anybody learned or found out? You start out with a Gleason score. Mine was 9, 4 plus 5, and I've seen that there's gentlemen with 6, 7s, and 8s, and so forth. It seems to me that after you have your prostate either surgically removed or have it radiated, Gleason's score would seem to be irrelevant from that point forward. Is that a fair statement?
That's a good question. Anyone have a comment on that one?
I would worry to a greater extent the higher my Gleason was. I can't guarantee that that's the case, but I'm a 9 also, and quite metastatic, but still have the prostate, didn't get radiated. So I'm maybe not the best person to ask.
Yeah. I could
Any
certainly.
of us ought to watch it very, very closely, whether you have a high or low Gleason. After you've been treated, you should be prudent.
Yeah, I think that metastatic cancer is essentially a function of the cells moving away from the original tumor. And so if the original tumor had been a 7 versus a 9, I think that even if those metastatic points aren't large enough to biopsy or do the same type of analysis of the Gleason, that there's probably a correlation.
Which begs the issue, should we go back and biopsy the prostate again 3-5 years down the road?
Well,
in other words, is that a central point of generation, a generation of cancer cells that's sending out little cancer demons to different parts of the body? Is it still doing that, or it's a mystery to me.
I mean, Bill can probably answer this a little bit better than me. I mean, my guess is that if PSA does not go to 0 after radiation, that there is still some amount of prostate tissue that is either has active cancer in it or potentially could turn into active cancer in the future. Shoot, I forgot what else I was going to say about that. If I could always foresee a Gleason 7 tissue turning into Gleason 8 or Gleason 9. Yeah, I don't know. Bill, is there something more that you can say about that?
We know that there are cancer stem cells that hang around and are probably lurking at various places in our body. And I just would continue to say that the higher your Gleason, the more likely you are to have nasty stem cells out there. And I agree with Aaron that if you have any PSA left after surgery or radiation, it means there's some prostate tissue there, and there may be some rogue cells in that tissue.
I could also potentially see that even renewing genetic testing, especially the genetic testing where they are testing to see if there's cancer cells going around in your blood itself, that could potentially pick up a different type of prostate cancer metastasis or mutation than what might have been there before. But I would have to imagine that once a particular type of mutation was discovered in the tumor cells itself, that can be potentially a more direct indication of how to treat the cancer than worrying whether or not it's now a Gleason 8, whereas it had been a Gleason 7 before. Right. I mean, if it's distantly metastasizing, I believe that's more likely to show then that with the blood test that the cancer cells are detected in the blood. But yeah, go ahead again, Pat.
Well, since I posed the question, why don't I try to turn up the answer? Sure. I will share it with the group. I'll go out to 2 different doctors, write that up, and see what kind of response we get. How's that?
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Back to the group.
Yeah. Sounds good. William, any chance you got your audio working? No. Oh, hang on. You're on mute again. Go ahead and try to say something there, William. No, William, I'm not hearing you. Potentially, William, you could, if you have Bill Lewis's hotline number, you might be able to call him and do the exact same thing that I'm doing with Pat here. We'll put you on a speakerphone. or just go ahead and type in your question in the chat window. That could help as well. Let's see.
Aaron, I can't find my hands up.
Yeah,
signal.
Bob, go ahead. Yeah.
But I do have a question, and it's really an insurance question. And I'm in a bit of a different place. I'd say really early in what's been diagnosed as a biochemical recurrence 10 years after a prostatectomy. Urologist wrote up an order for a PSMA PET scan. My insurance company turned it down and came up with a litany of things that they want done first, including bone scan, CAT scan, and an MRI. When aligned with rising PSA, then they would approve the PET scan. So I said, okay, let's do that. They approved the bone scan, they approved the CAT scan, and turned down the MRI, which was kind of surprising. And then the criteria they applied to the MRI was an extremely high PSA for someone who has had already had a prostatectomy. So I've got another consultation with my urologist this week. Well, my question is, anybody have that kind of experience? Any recommendations? I'm kind of surprised that Scripps, who is where my urologist practices, didn't fight back on any of that, and that will be part of the conversation I have on Wednesday. But at the same time, I haven't reacted too strongly because my PSA is low enough that, as I've asked in some others of these meetings, I'm kind of at the point it's even questionable whether a PSMA PET scan would show anything at this point. But of course, I would like to have that, that testing done as early as it can possibly show a result, so it can guide what we do in the future.
Yeah.
What's that PSA?
PSA is it's tested between 0.1 and 0.16 in the last couple of months.
Okay, we just had somebody who talked to us about when to do a PSMA test, and he said it's pretty good at 0.2 and may be helpful down as low as 0.1. So, you're approaching the region where it could be helpful according to our experts. And I favor the imaging healthcare specialists group for my scans. And so I had my PSMA there. And some years ago, I understood from them that they had somebody in their billing department that was particularly good about beating up insurance companies and getting them to pay for things. So I know that they're a little hard to get through to on the phone, but I'd encourage you to at least try that.
Yeah. That's I appreciate that. Interestingly, my surgery was done back when I lived in New York at Sloan Kettering, and when I talked to them, their attitude is really interesting. So if you work through us, we have a whole department that handles insurance companies, and when we protest that sort of thing, we always win.
Hey, there you go.
So it's interesting, and I'm aware of the 0.2 criteria, and that's kind of what I've been watching. And one follow-up question: anybody have insight in kind of what we were just talking about a little bit? I'm close enough to retirement that I'm looking towards the transition from my private insurance to Medicare. I'm over 65, so that'll happen as soon as I retire. For the kinds of issues that we're dealing with, what would I anticipate in the transition from private insurance to Medicare? One observation was that for what I'm dealing with now, it might have actually been easier with Medicare, since they accept the PSMA PET scan now officially. I might not have had as much static if that was actually written up by the physician and recommended. Any thoughts?
I mean, I heard a flood of people getting their PSMA scans when it became accepted by either the FDA or Medicare. So yeah, maybe somebody can chime in on that. But to your earlier point too, Bob, I do share your frustration a little bit. My cousin was just diagnosed with prostate cancer about I think 4 or 5 months ago now, he lives in a rural part of Vermont that made treatment a little bit challenging. I pushed him immediately for a PSMA scan, and he never ended up getting one because he was also told to go through all of the same hoops. You know, had to get the bone density scan first, and I think he had a PET MRI, I guess it was, but never had the PSMA itself. Although there was some other extenuating circumstances with having to get to a place that that would give that. I think, Bob, you did say that you're through Scripps, correct?
That's correct.
And does anybody know if Scripps themselves does PSMA scans internally, or do they actually refer out?
I can help with that, actually.
Yeah.
My experience, they will do it internally. And here's an interesting data point, actually. They will do it internally. The Scripps cost for the test was almost double what you can get it outside. So I actually had a call from a nurse who was to provide guidance, and part of our guidance was if your insurance turns it down and you want to just go ahead and pay for the test yourself, then we recommend you go someplace else where it costs less.
Oh, well, that's nice of them to say, at least.
Which was nice, but the difference was, like, if I'm remembering right, off the top of my head, over $10,000 versus $5,000.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a very substantial difference.
Yeah.
I would appreciate knowing if you find the low cost provider for PSMA scans. Well, when I got mine, they mentioned that it was like some 20 some odd $1,000 if you didn't have I guess what they would bill the insurance for. But if you didn't have insurance, they said, we'll give you a discount to $5,000. And then I'm talking to somebody yesterday who their lowest number they had heard was $6,200. So if anybody can confirm that 5,000 number or any numbers lower than that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, be good to know.
One thing that I can confirm is that the price fluctuates dramatically. It ranges anywhere from $4,000, and I had one show up on my bill at $14,500. Same test, all Scripts. It just depends what kind of mood they're in that day.
Yeah.
Level the traffic bear.
Yeah. Bob, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, I had my PSMA scan done at Imaging Healthcare Specialist in Encinitas on El Camino Real, and they told me the cost was $4,600.
Ah, okay.
$4,600.
All right. Not dealing with insurance, just paying cash?
Cash, yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. We've got a hand up from Albert Schaefer. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I think this works.
Ooh, feedback.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, is it working now? Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I run a support group for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for like over 21 years, and I'm a prostate cancer survivor, had proton radiation through UCSD. And I just got a letter just a couple days ago from Dr. John Eink, the radiologist there. He's retiring, he's leaving, and said, well, go back to your oncologist. I mean, your
urologist?
Urologist, yes. Urologists are surgeons, so as Maslow said, if your only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, you have a tendency to see all the world's problems as nails. But one of the things, working with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society on all the research that we've been funding, I've had access to the actual doctors that are doing a lot of this research. And at one of our conferences, I talked to the people who are doing CAR T, and asked them about prostate cancer, and they said they're, at that time, this about a couple of years ago, they're about 10 years out from CAR T therapy for prostate cancer. But I know a lot of the other things like Gleason, the protease inhibitors, have been also successful in treating not only prostate cancer, but breast cancer and lung cancer as well. It took decades for us to finally reach over $1 billion in funding for research, and in the last 4 years, there's literally been an explosion in cures and treatments for leukemias and lymphomas. My mother died of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and now that cancer is now 95% curable, where it used to be like a major death sentence. I'm not going to be able to come back till about November, October, because December, because I run a support. I work with the courts of San Diego, and I work with families going through a high conflict separation, divorce, and so I'm usually teaching a class at this time on Zoom. But I'll try and get back, circle back to you guys in October and November, as well. As I tell patients this, you need to be the CEO of your healthcare. And there's two approaches that people can take. One is that if you have, some people, they like a lot of information, and that's what helps them to be able to focus and make a decision. Other people are more faith-based. They just want to trust their doctors and go with the program. There's no right and wrong. The only thing that's right or wrong is if you need a lot of information and your oncologist wants you to be faith-based, that's not going to work. My wife had leukemia, and she had a bone marrow transplant, and her oncologist was really intimidated by her because she was, she worked for Pfizer, she worked for Scripps Research Institute. They were really, and so she just got another oncologist, one that was comfortable answering her, her questions. But it's like once you get this diagnosis, it's literally like it's like getting a master's degree in this field. And I really appreciate today's group. I learned a lot, and thank you for that. And support groups. I went to a Harrison support group for my prostate cancer, and it really helped me because I was just starting a job at UCSD for a couple of months, filling in for somebody. And at the same time, I was getting my proton radiation. And so I knew exactly what to ask for. And we were able to work it out where I was able to help UCSD and get my treatment. And my PSA has almost been, non-measurable. One of the things I just leave you with this. One of the things I learned from UCSD is that one of the treatments that they have, and I had no idea about this, but I want to pass it on to you, for prostate cancer is that they have cryonic treatment where they go in and they freeze it out. So if you've had radiation and you don't want surgery, this is another option. But if you don't know to ask for it, you may not be able to find it out because your urologist either doesn't know or won't tell you about it. So and I found when I went to Inks about radiation, he was proposing regular radiation, and I said, well, what about proton radiation? He says, well, how do you know about that? And I said, well, I work in the field. So, and he said, well, I don't know if they'll apply for it, but I said this, I said, I would prefer the proton radiation over photon radiation because there's less side effects. And because I said that, when they put it to the insurance company, I was able to get approval for proton radiation. The odds are the same, whether it was proton or photon, it would have been controlled equally either way. But so knowing how to ask, what to ask for is really key. Also, have somebody with you when you're at these appointments, because sometimes the shock is so overwhelming, you can't remember all the things that happened. So you could discuss it with somebody afterwards. And you could also ask to record the conversation as well.
Absolutely. That's all good advice. And Albert, thank you so much for everything that you do. I was part of Team in Training years ago and raised some money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I know it's a wonderful organization. Gosh, there were so many things I wanted to say there as you were talking. I've kind of forgot about everything I was going to say. But yeah, that's good news that an insurance company will respond to an appeal on photon versus proton. Back when I was looking into it, it was one of the times that the center down here was facing bankruptcy. They, of course, had opened assuming that they were going to be treating, you know, tons of men for prostate cancer with proton therapy, and the insurance companies at the time said there's no difference in the survival rates and the outcomes, so we're not going to pay the higher cost for proton versus photon. But if the it was always considered that proton would have fewer side effects. So it's glad to hear that the insurance companies are willing to listen to that fact now. Before we go on to Hugh, I see that you have your hand up. We did get William writing his question in. He said, I had space ore placed last week and waiting to start the stereotactic radiotherapy in 2 weeks. It will be 5 sessions over 2 weeks. What are the common side effects I should expect? Would anyone like to field that question? No?
Well, Mike didn't have much of anything with his radiation.
Yeah.
I think other people have fairly quickly gotten some urinary problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that with my IMRT that I had a lot more difficulty with clearing my bowels and avoiding gas. And I would have to imagine that with the space ore, that's actually less of an issue. So hopefully you won't have issues in that direction either. But yeah, I guess I don't know what else to say there. So yeah, let's go on to Hugh. You have your hand up. Go ahead, Hugh.
Thank you. And I'm kind of new to this. I'm wondering if your speaker before the last question could say again what the freezing kind of treatment was. Again, I'm pretty new to this. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, Albert. Go ahead.
Okay, so kind of what it is like, you know, similarly to when you have skin cancer, they go in and they freeze it off. Okay, I think they use like liquid nitrogen to do that. A similar procedure that they do for the prostate as well. So they have to target the area where, you know, where the cancer is, and usually by that point in time, they pretty much have an idea where it is. And so you know, they can go in and treat it that way. And for me, that was comforting to know, because I felt my Gleasons were 3 and 4, and even though they eradicated, it might come back. And I was told I can't have any more radiation than what I had. And again, you know, I agree with, you know, I've heard a lot of horror stories about people with the surgery and having their prostate removed. And so to me, this is okay. This is another option that I can do. And also talk to different, you know, urologists, because there are a lot of different procedures out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, your urologist is going to promote the one that one does, but you know, you need to know what options and choices are, so you can make the best decision for yourself. Recovery is somebody taking somebody with no power and control and instilling within them a sense of power and control. And so the more information you have, the more power and control you have, the better decision that you can make.
I could be wrong, but I believe the full name for what Albert was talking about is called cryoablation. And
yes.
Or it's called cryotherapy.
Cryotherapy. This is one of a number of what they call focal therapies, and HIFU is another one that is a focal therapy along these, you know, similar lines, that uses ultrasound to you know, essentially, you know, burn the tissue. We also have a lady from up in the Palm Desert area, Bernadette Greenwood, that comes in, and she's been doing research in essentially doing a focal therapy using lasers. She's been doing the research on that for years. That's another option. There's links on our website to and Bill, help me out. What was, does she call it laser ablation or laser focal therapy? Do you remember the?
I forget the term, but if you look up Bernadette,
Yeah.
you'll see when she talked to us, you go to the subsequent month and you can see our summary of her talk.
Yeah, a lot of good information there. Yeah, and I know that even, they'll do it with high frequency, high radio frequency electricity. And I came across a guy in Minnesota that is now working on doing it with DC current, but it's, what's that?
Yeah, just surprised.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different types of focal therapies that are alternatives to actual removal.
I highly endorse complementary therapies because alternatives seems to be exclusive. Complementary says, in addition to, I use an herbal supplement called Epilobia for my prostate, and I found it very beneficial for quite a number of years. My prostate is huge, but I'm still able to pee, and I'm taking a whole cocktail medications for that. And a lot of nights I sleep through the night. So if I do get up, it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, only once. So yeah, and it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Albert, back on the cryotherapy, were you saying that it's actually offered at UCSD? Because I thought you had to go to UCLA for that, or LA.
No, it's through UCSD. Because I was working there and I would get all the notifications. I was working in the neuropsych unit, and I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I would get all the notices. I've worked for Kaiser. I've worked for Scripps Mercy. I worked at San Diego County Psych. I worked at Camp Pendleton Naval Hospital as well. So I've got a lot of experience, both oncology, trauma, mental health. I'm semi-retired, so I do things that I find really helpful. So that's where I'm at. So I'm a plethora of information. Help anybody any way I can.
I'm going to go back to William Sandberg's question again a minute. Did he sign off though? I think he might have. Yeah, hang on just a second. Just only because I might have breezed over a little bit too much of his question about common side effects with radiation as opposed to being specific with the space or it's I think it was Douglas wrote in. Douglas Hall had urination frequency, poor sleep, some pain in the lower stomach area, being very tired, fatigued, so forth in the afternoons, and depression. And yeah, so those are also common side effects from radiation. I suffered from all of those as well. I was taking naps on the floor of my office for 2 hours every afternoon. I was myself, at least, I had somebody drive me to radiation the very first day, thinking that I was instantly going to get knocked out and have absolutely no energy. And it is definitely something that, just kind of like builds up a little bit over time. I have to imagine that pretty much nobody feels any effects after the first day of radiation. You're going to walk out of there feeling like, okay, that seemed like nothing. And it's only after multiple doses that builds up. Certainly with having the higher dose radiation, that might be a little bit different. And even for me, I did get to the point where, yeah, I did need somebody to drive me to some of my appointments after a while. And I would almost say that was perhaps due to more of a disruption of my digestive system and being able to obtain enough calories and so forth. I started eating about 5 meals a day, and I wasn't absorbing anything, and I just had diarrhea all the time. And I ended up taking digestive enzymes, what I call a broadly affecting digestive enzymes. Many of you have heard of Beano. which, you know, is a narrow category, but if you can get digestive enzymes that help digest and lipids, you know, fats, proteins, sugars, fiber, everything, it just helps your body absorb nutrients that much easier. And for me, I ended radiation feeling better than I started after starting the enzymes. With that, I want to mention that Bill Manning just wrote in, Desert Medical Imaging is now called Halo Diagnostics for focal laser ablation. That's where Bernadette Greenwood is up in the Palm Desert area. Bob asked me, I think on the digestive enzymes, which ones I take. There's one that you can get a bottle off of Amazon. I think it's called Pure. I'll try to pull it up here in a minute. And yeah, Pure. I think it was. Let me get back to you on that one. But let's go back to Bob August. You have your hand up there. Go ahead.
Yeah, a different kind of question. One of the promising therapies that has been discussed in several of the last meetings that we've had is PSMA theranostics. And I'm just wondering if anyone has any practical experience with either that form of therapy being recommended or getting into clinical trials where I think a lot of that kind of work is being done. Any experience with that at all? Really, you know, from the research I've done, it all seems really very promising. But I hear very little of people who are actually been through that course or at least attempted it.
Yeah, that certainly is an exciting new technology, and we just had a big talk on it last month.
Right.
We've at times asked, like, all right, so if this is, you know, the smart bomb for cancer cells, you know, how can I do it? And I believe that they still require people to have even gone through chemotherapy and not had chemotherapy work before they do the PSMA theranostics. I think Gene, if you're still on, I think you might have some information on this that you could share.
And if not Gene, then maybe I can comment.
Can you hear me?
Might need to speak up a little bit.
Okay. My only experience was that my cancer wasn't hot enough to go undergo that kind of treatment, but it is very good type of treatment if you can qualify for it. It may be approved in another 3 or 4 months.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it certainly is. I kind of look at it as, you know, that's the the savior for us. Start, you know, within a few years when they got it all dialed in. There are of course some, you know, slight side effects with it. I guess it can affect either kidneys or bladder and salivary glands or something like that. So, you know, I can certainly see where, you know, it's not a panacea, but they're, you know, still in development on some of that. And
Yeah, I wanted to comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a less positive view of the current lutetium protocols. We had somebody who went to Australia twice for it and got no benefit. I believe, I may be wrong, but I think only a third of those who go through it actually get a serious benefit, and that the overall life extension that they calculate is 4 months. So I'm not very excited about the current type, but the talk we had last month from Telix Pharmaceuticals gave a glimmer of great hope to me. They have a product called TLX 591 that's in phase 3 trials, and they're planning to do an extended trial, which means they just will accept more patients. They're working on setting that up. They were uncomfortable telling us a whole lot about it for legal reasons, but I think we should all very closely watch when that trial comes up, if we might possibly be candidates for it. And my recollection was that the acceptance criteria were wide enough that it could be of interest to all of us. And I think they'll be doing it all over the country.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, my perspective is exactly what you were saying. Where they focus that therapy for good reason is on very advanced cases where other forms of therapy have failed or stopped working. And
Right.
from where I am, I'm thinking this seems like it would be really promising. If you can catch things early and not get to that point. When are we going to start looking at that? And it seems like at Sloan Kettering, they're at least thinking about that, but I haven't seen it, gotten any resonance on whether that actually presents a practical opportunity.
Yeah.
But it seems like the direction things may be going. And Bill, that's really good feedback on what some of the practical statistics are showing.
Yeah. Before going to Friedman, just to catch you up, I did paste into the chat window the digestive enzymes that I take. They're called Pure Encapsulations Digestive Enzymes Ultra, and it's about $30 for 90 capsules. It's quite inexpensive, and I don't even take them all the time. During radiation, I took I think one before each meal for about 2 days. And I went from diarrhea to constipation, and I stopped them. And I might have taken I might have taken them again like once or twice in the next week, and that was it. I look at these as they almost like kind of reset your digestive system, get it back on track. And these were first introduced to me by my acupuncturist friend who happened to be going through breast cancer treatment the exact same time I was doing prostate cancer. And she just takes them on occasion because she says, as we get older, our digestive systems don't work as well. And these can be great for helping out. And so on the rare occasion that I have red meat, I'll have one of these beforehand, and just helps digest a little bit. Somebody just had their hand up again. Go ahead, Friedman.
Yeah, I have a question. Is Medicare currently paying for proton radiation therapy? The reason I ask is because I just had a biopsy done and saw a radiologist, oncologist at Scripps. And before he even looked at the results of my PSMA test, he said, you're probably going to need radiation based on a Gleason of 7, 3 + 4. And I said, well, if I do radiation, I prefer to do proton. And he said, well, there's really no difference between proton and IMRT. So, he probably is going to recommend IMRT. But is that because the Medicare won't pay for the proton, or does anybody know any more about that?
Well, I'd also have to guess that Scripps doesn't get paid anything for a patient that gets sent to proton as well. A little tongue in cheek there, having actually heard one of the pitches from Scripps as to why they want more cancer patients to go to Scripps. But yeah, someone else want to make a comment on that to answer the question?
Somebody named Dave S. said in the chat that he had proton therapy and it was covered by Medicare. And
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, they did the PSMA internally because there was a question about that. My urologist was a Scripps urologist, and he referred me to this radiation oncologist who set up the PSMA, which I haven't got the results back yet. But
and then on the third time.
Another question though, has anybody had a UroLift or a procedure done to stop frequent urination? Because I'm scheduled to do that, and the radiologist said, if you're going to do that, you have to do that before we do the radiation. Because we can't do the radiation once you've done any type of procedure like the UroLift, and I'm scheduled to do the UroLift in the next 30 days. So I'm just curious if anybody had any experience with that.
Sorry, let me just clarify what you said. You said that the doctor said that you needed to have the UroLift procedure before the radiation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, so I'm just curious, would anybody had any experience with a Urolift operation to remedy the frequent urination problem?
Anyone? I haven't
well,
heard about Urolift directly myself. I do know that some people have had artificial sphincters put in. I don't know how different that is.
Well, they just go through your urinary canal and they pin back the prostate that's pressing on your urinary canal so that so your bladder can empty and you don't have to urinate as frequently. It sounds like it's something a little new, but not that uncommon to do it. But anyway.
Yeah. No, yeah, sorry. I guess nobody is pitching in info on that.
Okay.
We'll look to hear you tell us how it works.
I'll be more than glad to.
Yeah. We'll have you at the next roundtable.
But is there something where will Medicare pay for proton therapy if your doctor recommends it?
Dave S. did say I had proton therapy and it was covered by Medicare and United Healthcare.
Okay, that's what I have, so I'll run with that. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. I'm just scanning through all the chats again. I think one thing that let's see, Douglas Hall had written in before about the side effects of radiation and Yansa. I'm not familiar with Yansa. Douglas, can you tell us what Yansa is? But one thing he did say is that what helped during his radiation was exercise, everyday weights, push-ups, and walking. He was going to try therapy, but now stays positive. I'm 79 to 80. I'm 79 and 80 in a few days. Happy birthday. I also have chronic lymphatic leukemia. So yeah, a lot going on there. I'm sorry that you're going through that. I am definitely a big proponent of going for therapy. If it was not for my therapist, I would have not gotten through all of this. She was definitely a big part of my support team on this, including doing a little bit of a background check on a couple of the doctors that I had suggested just to make sure that I was getting the best care that I could. So definitely very helpful to have somebody to talk to. Let's see, we've got a hand up from J&M Gosiewski. Sorry, sorry I butchered that.
Joseph Gosiewski, yeah. I have just briefly question because I know this is the end of the discussion and so forth. My situation was that I was taking for my prostate cancer cryosurgery. It helped me for maybe 2 years. And after that, the problem came back with the PSA raising up and so forth. After that, I decided to get a proton. And proton therapy, and I had proton therapy for maybe 2 years ago. It still looks like it's working fine and no PSA for my prostate. It's clear. But recently I was discovered with my lymphoma in my left lymph node lymphoma. And I would like to ask you, what do you think? This PSMA test would be okay for my lymphoma in my left lymph node lymphoma to do this test? What is the test? PSMA. What is the test exactly? And it would be good for me for my lymphoma.
So the PSMA test is what's so wonderful about the PSMA test is the prostate produces PSA, prostate specific antigen, and it is emitted by a site on the cells, which is I guess they call it the PSMA site or something like that. I'm sure I'm butchering some of this, but essentially these PSMA scans, they will be able to attach a radioactive element directly to the cancer cell that has these PSMA sites on it. And for the scanning purposes, that can then just show up on the screen very brightly. This is where the cancer is. And the PSMA therapeutics uses a similar type of situation where it has more of a longer lasting radiation, such that the radioactive element gets delivered right to the cancer cell, attaches at the PSMA site, and it stays there to radiate the cancer cell. So Bill, why don't you jump in and correct everything that I just said that was wrong?
That was pretty good, but
Okay.
my question is, does lymphoma produce the PSMA protein on the surface of its cells? And I think that it may not be specific for lymphomas, only for prostate cancer.
Yeah, because I had a PET scan for lymphoma, and they showed me that I have the cancer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where the PSMA would help if you already know that's where it is, and try and treat it there.
Okay, but besides that, I was prescribed rituximab for my lymphoma, and I was taking this like for 1 month, 3 weeks exactly, and after that, they discovered that my lymphoma is just improved. It's just maybe less cancer now, but besides that, the oncologist prescribed me a ref limit, which is anyway very expensive. It was like 1 month supply of the chemotherapy. It cost $17,000. But anyway, my copayment was estimated for $2,009 per 1 month. $2,009 per 1 month. And I am applying for the Bristol Myers company and so forth, but they are very much not much cooperative regarding that. But I try to do so. Anyway, if anybody has experience with this lymphoma, let me know.
Albert already chimed in with a lot of info. I definitely would recommend seeking out a lymphoma specific support group that could answer more of those questions for you. As Albert said here, there's over 20 different forms of lymphoma. And they'll likely have some more direct answers to your questions. It's just to reiterate what Bill was saying, that the PSMA scan will find other locations of prostate cancer in the body, but it's not necessarily going to find different types of non-prostate cancer.
But let me confirm the last question. Is PSA only showing us the level of cancer in the prostate, or just in our entire body?
So sorry, can you ask that again for me, please?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
What he's asking is, does PSA only come from the prostate? And the answer is no. If there are metastases like I have, those metastatic prostate cancer tumors in my bones, for instance, they produce PSA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mike,
looks like we've got other hands raised.
Yeah. Actually, why don't we go to Albert, because I'm guessing you have something associated with answering that question.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different types of lymphoma out there, and they all have their own specific differences and things. And you, as Freud says, that Brewer said, a patient can have both ticks and fleas. You can have multiple types of cancers at the same time. They're not exclusionary. Anybody with a leukemia or lymphoma diagnosis, we do have a stipend for people. All you have to do is have your clinician write a note that you have this diagnosis, and we will give you some money, cash, no strings attached. There's other funding streams that open up as well. And there's a great CML group that's here in Southern California. They're actually a national organization. Joni, she comes to my group as well. So if you have a lymphoma, you can go to Leukemia Lymphoma Society, sign up for our support group. I run it with Jody Garrett, who is a transplant nurse at Moore's Cancer Center. And then the CML group, which is another great group, we can hook you up with that as well. support groups are great. Doctors, they do their thing, but you really want to know what's happening with treatment, you need to talk to patients. And a great book I read on that was The Body Keeps Score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a lot of you have heard of that book. And so, research, they do a lot for the treatment, but they don't do anything about the distress that us patients have to grapple with.
Does that help you out? Do you think you're going to be able to find that support group with what's been said here? Oh. So where'd he go?
I would be glad. I would be glad to have some information about support group for lymphoma.
Albert, would it be all right to paste the URL that could direct him to how he can get a hold of that support group into the chat window?
Sure.
All right, and can you find the Mr. Gosuski? Can you find the chat window all right to find that in a minute?
Could you say again?
Do you have the chat window open for Zoom?
Chat window? I'm not sure.
If you look at, I think at the bottom of the screen, there might be an icon that says chat to the right of where you were muting and unmuting.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Open that up and look for a message from Albert, and he'll post a link there to get
okay, I got it.
To the support group. All right. Do we have any other hands up? Or I think Mike a moment ago, weren't you waving your hand?
Somebody did.
I think, oh yeah, Mike has stepped out of the screen for the moment.
I'm back, buddy. I'm back.
All right, Mike, did you have a question or comment?
I did when we were talking about the PSMA scan, which I just had July 5th. I have another friend, or my friend's wife, who had breast cancer years ago, and just discovered that she has a couple of spots on one of her lungs, and they did a PSMA scan, and that's how they found it. So I heard you guys discussing it, saying that it's only good for prostate cancer, and I just found out that, I mean, this week, that she had the same PSMA scan that I had, and found it lit up cancer.
Interesting.
So I just figured I'd throw that out there.
Interesting. Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. We have a question from Phil Young. Why don't you go ahead and unmute? Yeah, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a recent PSA test after I contracted COVID. So I was three weeks negative. And for 30 years, my PSA level was pretty constant. And then all of a sudden it jumped up 0.7. And I was wondering, is there any relationship to COVID?
That's a good question. And I apologize. I think you had written that in earlier and I might have overlooked it. Yeah, I haven't heard of anything in particular. Certainly the PSA can fluctuate with different activities and diet issues as well. For example, it will go up for 2 weeks after any sexual activity, I believe. And I think it can vary by 10 to 20% or something. And remind me again, you said that the PSA had been how much before COVID and then it went up to 0.7?
Well, I mean, 30 years ago, it started at 0.8. And then just last year, it was 1.4. So it doubled in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it went up 0.7 in 1 year.
It went up by 0.7 in 1 year.
To 2.1.
To 2.1. Since we do want to watch what the doubling time is, because that's kind of that is essentially a way of judging how aggressive the any prostate cancer tissue might be. Basically, meaning like we would expect tissue that's Gleason 9 or 10 to be doubling the PSA quicker than say like a Gleason 6 or 7, but it's it's something that you want to, watch to see if the doubling time increases. I imagine that any doctor would retest you a month later if there is a significant rise in PSA, just to see if it was just an anomaly or if it was, in fact, demonstrates a trend. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what effect COVID truly has on the body. I could certainly see there being a possibility of a correlation there, just because your body was fighting off a whole bunch of other infection at the time.
Yeah, one thing I read on the internet was there was a possibility of the prostate leaking more, with the COVID virus. So that might be a possibility.
Interesting.
My PSA started rising pretty rapidly once I got the vaccinations and the booster. And it seems to be, I asked my doctor this, if there was a correlation between the vaccinations and affecting my PSA. He didn't get back to me. See, I don't know whether he took me seriously or not, but I read an article by some doctor in Palm Springs or Palm Desert who said that he thought there might possibly be a relationship. There are a number of people have said their PSA was going up since they got vaccinated, like I did. So I think the jury's still out on that one, but I've heard rumors about that being a possibility.
Yeah.
Any idea of how long it will take to come back down?
No, because I just asked him about it, and I just had my PSA checked, and I just did a PSMA. So we're waiting to see what happens, because I haven't been boosted in 6 months, but it's just sort of a thing that I'm just going to have to watch. But I was wondering if that's what caused the rapid increase in my PSA, because it corresponded to the same time period where I got vaccinated twice and had a booster, and all of a sudden my PSA is starting to increase much more rapidly than it had in the past. But I don't have an answer from the urologist or the radiologist, oncologist person about that. So I'm waiting to hear, and I'll let you know if I hear anything.
Okay, what was your increase?
Well, I've had a very high PSA for many years, and it was going along at about 14. I know that sounds high to you, but my urologist didn't feel there was any problem as long as it stayed constant. But once the period where I got the vaccinations, it was like a 3-year period since that started, or even less than that. My PSA went from 14 to 25. And that's why I said, whoa, why is it increasing so fast like that all of a sudden? And he didn't have an answer for me, but that prompted them to do this PSMA scan that I did the other day, and I'm waiting to get the results of that.
Thank you.
I don't know, but I've heard that there's a potential relationship, even though the doctors don't seem to think there is or be aware of it just yet.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, did you have a comment there? I think I saw your hand up a moment.
Yeah, no, excuse me. I do not. Thanks. You, Aaron.
Just stretching. Yeah.
I can offer, a single data point that's probably not particularly meaningful, but I had to delay my latest PSA test till I got through with quarantine after testing positive for COVID, and there was, in fact, that most recent test PSA actually went down a little bit. So I didn't see any particular correlation there for myself.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I only started tracking my PSA when it was 9, when I was 39, and I was being tested monthly by a doctor who declared that this was not prostate cancer, but I would have a fluctuation of almost a full point. Obviously, down at the PSA between 1 and 2, it's a lot less of a fluctuation, but yeah, there can be fluctuations just on our general health and activity level. And yeah, COVID is intense, so I would definitely retest a month later. And given the fact that these long COVID symptoms are an unknown, I could see it going both ways. That it's something that for most people there probably is no long-term effect on the PSA, and it might go back to being a normal indicative type of test in 1 to 2 months, or it could be something that if you have I would assume, other symptoms to indicate that you're, have in general long COVID symptoms, then yeah, it could be maybe suspect as well for a while.
Yeah, I was
Excuse me,
very
gentlemen.
lucky.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to have to back out right now because it's just my restaurants are. I'm getting texts constantly here.
Yeah.
It was really a pleasure. I'm looking forward to joining you again next month if I can.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, don't worry about a thing. We're all going to be fine.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Mike. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I'm
Questions.
available to you guys at any time, 24/7.
Yeah, excellent, excellent.
All right, Aaron, Jen, I don't know if Bill is still on, but Bill, I'll speak to you either later or tomorrow. And gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye.
and thanks, of course, to Bob and Pat as well. Are there any other questions? I don't see any hands up.
Actually, Aaron.
Yeah.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
You were very young at 38.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a PSA score at 38. What made you go and get it tested? You had some kind of symptom?
No, I did not have symptoms. What happened to me was that I had a fantastic doctor. And he said, oh, you're getting close to 40. Let's test your PSA level. And
my God, you don't know how lucky a man you are.
Well, hang on a minute. And that's what makes this just such a hilarious story, is because I sat on that blood test for like a week. I didn't go in and get it done. And by the time that I actually had the blood test done and the results came back, that particular doctor was no longer seeing patients. I didn't know about this,
Right.
and I really only had waited like a week or two to actually go in and have the blood test. And so a different doctor read the results, and he was the one that saw, oh, wow, PSA of 9. Yeah, but you're 39. You're too young for this. What ended up happening was that first doctor was dying of prostate cancer. That's why he was so on top of things. And if that doctor had seen my results, he would have read the results, made a phone call to a specialist, made an appointment for me, and then called me up and said, I've already made an appointment for you. You drop everything and go in and see this specialist. So instead, I didn't do anything for 2 years. I did not do anything serious for 2 years on account of this other doctor. And I only started doing something then because I was having symptoms of BPH. And by that time, the urologist was like, oh my gosh, you need a biopsy. Yeah, you've got cancer. You need surgery.
Great.
Yeah. And of course, had I gone ahead with any kind of treatment earlier on, I probably would not have ended up with lymph nodes being involved and then had to go on to radiation and hormone therapy.
What surgery did you have?
I did have a prostatectomy at the age of 43, just 5 years ago next week. And that was when the pathology from that surgery indicated that lymph node had been involved. And that's when I got an MRI, which said, oh, you have other lymph nodes that are still involved.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks again. I'm going to take off, gentlemen. I wish us all the best, and I know God will take care of us all.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Mike.
All right, boys. Later.
See ya.
See ya.
Pat, what were you saying there? I didn't hear that.
Aaron, what was the highest PSA count that you had?
I was upwards of between 17 and 19 at the time of the surgery, I believe. It had taken, I think, 2 years to essentially double to that point.
Yeah, my first surprise was at 14.75.
Yeah.
And I fell off the table.
Yeah. And I had, when I was 39, that was right at the time that the government was saying, these PSA tests, they're giving too many false results. It's not indicative of the fact that you have prostate cancer, which we now know years later that no, in fact, that was a total incorrect thing that they should have that they were saying, and it was people like me in this like 0.01% that was the collateral damage to that to that message. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, so I feel extremely lucky today that my PSA is actually undetectable. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. So all right, questions from anyone else? We still have a few people left here. But I don't see any hands raised. Let's see. All right, if that's it, then I think that we can call it a wraps on the meeting. Again, thanks so much to everyone for your questions, and for Pat, Mike, and Bob for sharing their stories, helping out so many people today, for sure. So we will see you. Yeah, thanks, Pat. We'll see you all again in another month. All right, until then, take care.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Bye-bye.